We do now have a guest here with us, Senator Amy Klobuchar, joining us. Senator Klobuchar, first, I just want to send my condolences to you. You and Representative Hortman, quite close, came up together, started at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
She, I always think of her way back, door knocking every single house in her district. She practically was friends with everyone. She had little kids at the time. We had our daughter, and there weren't many women in politics in leadership back then, much less women with kids. And Melissa somehow balanced it all, being a Girl Scout leader, a Sunday school teacher, raising these kids, and then moving up in the legislature to become Speaker of the House, the highest position, so beloved by her colleagues on both sides of the aisle. The fact that they worked that budget out this year, and then all the work she did on school lunch and so many other achievements, all while keeping grounded in who she was and loving her family and dog. And I mean, it's just absolutely devastating. And we saw her last night. There was a dinner, and they were there, and she and Senator Hoffman now, who's somehow made it through this surgery, and our hope is that he and Yvette will make it through as well.
When you think about, we've had this conversation before, some of the rhetoric that's out there and how difficult it is to know when a threat comes through, because we don't hear those stories of any time a lawmaker receives some sort of threat.
No.
And sometimes it's thought to be a hollow threat. And in this case, it obviously was not, and that has to be difficult on all of you.
Sure. So lawmakers get threats all the time, and you actually don't make publicity out of it because we think then you get copycats, and so you don't say it. But there have been thousands and thousands of threats against members of Congress alone, not to mention state legislators, judges. You think of the man on the street in front of Justice Kavanaugh's house a few years back, and it's just been on the rise. And I know this because I formerly chaired the Rules Committee of the Senate, worked with the police chief all the time. We actually added more ability for members of Congress to get security on their homes and the like, but it's still the case that there isn't enough security. No, we beefed it up. They've called from Washington, Leader Thune, the Republican leader, as well as Senator Schumer, the Democratic leader, called me. I mean, they are beefing up the security on the members here, as well as the state is doing it as well.
It's a significant day. We had the No King's Day protest. We have the military parade in Washington, D.C. We just got through a very, as you mentioned, a very divided session where some difficult words were said between both parties. And it just feels, and I mentioned this to Senator Duckworth, a Republican from Lakeville, our state senator here, it just feels like we are not doing a great job of coming together.
Well, it's one of the reasons that Representative Emmer and McCollum and Senator Smith and myself and our entire delegation today, from left to right, put out a statement condemning political violence of any form. We need to bring the temperature down here, and there's going to be plenty of moments to call that out. For me, today is about honoring this incredible woman and praying for the recovery of Senator Hoffman, and then also, of course, telling our citizens here, because we are in the middle of a major manhunt. This is a very dangerous man, and he has shown no limits on what he'll do. When I was in your studio just now, it was the first time I'd seen that FBI released chilling photo of him at the door. They released it for good reason, because that's how he looked in the middle of the night last night. But it's just so chilling to think that's how he looked right before he murdered, or in the case of Senator Hoffman, attempted to murder a legislator.
Unfortunately, it feels like in so many ways people are being dehumanized. And it's not just in this case, but I feel like in so many ways it's you pick your side and you don't see the other side as the human beings, as the spouses, as the parents, as the community members that they are.
And it's just been, this has been on the rise. Some of it is, honestly, local news brings us together. People are watching the same thing when they tune in to CCO, but there's a lot of divisiveness online. I'm not condemning all online. I'm not saying that was the cause of this guy's violence, but in some of the cases in the past, these people, like the one that bludgeoned Speaker Pelosi's husband, he clearly was very, very sick man. but he got really incited by reading this stuff. So some of this, I've been obsessed with trying to get this stuff off the internet by trying to have some rules of the road and have truth and not lies, because it's been a real big problem. But that isn't to say that was the only reason. There's just so much divide in our politics right now. And as someone that works across the aisle and someone that tries to bring some civility to all of it, it has gotten increasingly difficult.
When did you get the news this morning? Were you woken up?
So what happened was I was at that dinner with Melissa. I spoke at the beginning because I was going to New Hampshire to help one of our candidates there for the U.S. Senate. So I'd gotten on a plane, like late plane, got into Boston, found out the governor called me at 5 this morning.
Governor Walz.
I happened to be awake and texted me first. I talked to him. Of course, we were couldn't even believe it and upset. And he was also warning me about everything that was going. And then I just got on a plane and came back because I wasn't going to be sitting out there giving a bunch of speeches when this was going on.
Right.
When you think about what Melissa Hortman was all about, tell us from your experience, because our viewers don't have that relationship.
Yeah, I know. That's what when someone goes like this, you wish everyone could have met them. And I just remember first getting to know her when she, brand new mom there. She's campaigning for legislator, and she had this house. Their first house was in Brooklyn Park, I think. And I just remember her talking about her dad's auto parts business and how it was used auto parts and how that was, it was like a small business, right? Entrepreneur, and that was a big part of their life. Excited about that. Then they had these kids, and as I said, she goes on to teach Sunday school, be Girl Scout leader, be regular mom as much as you possibly could, except for those 5 months out of the year she had to go over to St. Paul every single day. And the fact that she was able to rise up in the middle of doing all that is really a tribute to her, and the fact that people really liked her, and she could show that she could accomplish things and get things done.
And to compromise.
Yeah, and then she also had this spunk to her. I remember when there was this card game going on, the guys used to play in the back room, and she called it out publicly. She said, "You guys need to come back. I know you're playing cards there." Or there was a mute button the speaker could use and mute out so that they could just stop someone from talking on the House floor. She's like, "I'm getting rid of that," in her third day as speaker, because she just said, "I've got the gavel. I can handle it if they're out of hand." So she was someone who took charge in a very kind way, with humor, and I always just loved to get advice from her, talk to her when I'd say, "What's happening with this at the state legislature? Can we get this done? Can't?" She would just answer you straight. She wouldn't just, be afraid to tell you what was what.
A lot of people we've talked with today that know Melissa Hortman and her husband, it seems like they're in a bit of shock.
Yes.
And I suspect you are as well. But I know you've been talking to many of your fellow legislators, and I wonder about this idea of fear. Are you afraid?
Look, there have been moments I've been afraid. Right now, honestly, there's more law enforcement, all this stuff. In your jobs, you got to be honest. You get these threats. You have people who don't seem to like you very much. And there's just more and more threats in different ways. They can be at people's homes. They can be in their offices. And we've seen just big increases to that. And you never really talk about it because I promise you it makes it worse if you start giving all these details about it. So that has been hard. And it also makes it harder to do your job. You want to be able to say, "I'm going to be on the corner of this shopping mall a week before so everyone can come and hear you." But every bit of advice you're given is don't do that. Just kind of show up. And that makes it so you feel like you're not really there for your constituents like you should. But that has been a complete change over when I first started in politics, where you would be much more overt about where you were and where you were available. Now, in this case, again, I just don't want to make, whether it's what motivated this madman or whether it is, what happened here with the facts about how he got to where he was. I don't know what they were. I just know that Melissa and John, one still hanging in there, the other one we've lost, were two legislators that made themselves available. And that's the truth at the state, city levels. I mean, they're there all the time, right? They don't have big security gates, especially people of reasonable means themselves. And so you know, ring camera, but this guy was so manipulative and so evil that he manipulated them into opening the door.
And we've heard that lawmakers here in the state have had really good support from law enforcement when it comes to any of those concerns that have come up over recent years.
Exactly, and I've seen that they've been just stellar. In this case, the fact that I've talked to some of the other senators from other states, from both parties, who've called me today, and they just couldn't believe that, you know, they find out about this horrid crime scene, but they decide on their own, well, we better go check out the Hortman house. So they drive over there, unfortunately just a little too late, and it sounds like he'd already killed her and her husband, or at least they were shot severely, and then they at least are able to identify who he is. And while they still haven't tracked him down, it helps a lot to know who he is, and there will be tips, and this will be solved. But without them having the presence of mind to go over there, they would have probably killed other leaders as well.
I thought it was interesting that the statement that you all put out from the entire congressional congregation came in. Did you talk with Representative Emmer? I mean, what was the impetus behind this?
Yeah, so this morning I talked to Representative Emmer very early in the morning. Despite our political differences, we've been friends for a long time. So we talked through this. I also talked to Representative McCollum, the dean of our congressional delegation, and then of course Senator Smith and the governor first thing this morning before 8 a.m. And this idea was hatched with our delegation, and so we put this out. But it was every single member.
Well, Senator Klobuchar, we appreciate you taking the time. Our condolences to you as well, and we do appreciate you joining us.
It is about these families of the Hoffmans and the Hortmans, and of course it's about our citizens right now. Just follow what law enforcement says. It's probably going to change every few hours what they say, and stay tuned, watch CCO and the other stations, and figure out what's going on so you have credible news sources about what to do.
Right, and you're right. It is about the citizen, but it also is about the people like you, the people who were friends with her, and there were
that's what's so personal.
Many of them.
It's so personal because she was just the most dear person.
And we've heard that over and over from people today on both sides of the aisle. We heard it from her neighbors too. I mean, I think and I keep mentioning this because I think it's so relatable. She was always out walking her dog.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so
she'd call on the phone walking her dog. She loved her dog.
Senator Klobuchar, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.